And I'm going to welcome everybody to our third summer book review. We are really excited to see everybody here and very excited of our today's book review. I'm going to ask Eve Aptheker to get us started off this morning, and then she'll be introducing our speaker, Sally. Thanks, Eve. Did we lose Eve? Is she here?
Evelyn disappeared.
Evelyn disappeared. It looks like Eve disappeared.
I saw her a
Evelyn's
few minutes ago.
window is there, but she's not in it.
Pardon
Maybe
me?
she stepped out for a minute.
Oh, okay. Well, while we're waiting for her, Goldie, do you have any announcements? Nothing like putting our president on the spot? It's okay.
So when are we going to talk about cards and certificates and the importance of supporting cards and certificates?
Thank you, Goldie. We're going to talk about that right now. Sandra, would you like to unmute yourself? Thank you, Goldie.
Yes, today I'd like to talk about New Year's cards. We have a few of them that are $1 each. And we have the newest one, which is 3, 4, 5. Did you, Helen, you said you had the pictures? Helen,
I could be going to anyway.
what happened? Where'd everybody go?
Helen, you're muted.
There you go, Helen.
Okay, so we're starting off a little technically challenged today, but I do have pictures. Hold on one moment. And I'll share that screen with you. Whoop.
That's not one of the cards.
You are right. How does that look?
Nice.
Can everybody see those?
I know I can.
They're beautiful.
Okay.
Card number 1 is the newest card because it has the new logo, and that is 3 for $5. The other 4 cards are $1 each. If anyone's interested, I can tell you what's inside the card, or whatever one you might be interested in. Of course, you would have to unmute to tell me.
Actually, once again, I'm going to put Sandra's number in the chat box before we're done today. I really encourage you not only to think about New Year's cards, but also any kind of greeting cards. And we're so lucky to have Sandra who provides this service for us. Thank you, Sandra.
Thank you.
And now I'm looking for Eve. I still don't see her. Yeah, I don't know what
So
happened.
here's an idea. Let's hear from Sally, and then we'll hear all about how wonderful Sally is at the conclusion of her presentation. How's that?
That sounds good. And I think she also brings a Hadassah moment for today too.
Even better. So stick
Sally
around, everybody.
Sally
Don't leave.
Sally is no stranger. She's done a couple of book reviews for us in the past. And if there's anything else you'd like to say, go right ahead. And Sally, now I turn it over to you.
Okay, thank you so much, Helen. I did do 2 book reviews at the Jewish Community Center. Oh, here's Eve. Eve is back. Helen? Eve is back.
Oh,
You
okay,
let her
Eve.
go.
Eve, we were just getting ready to start. We didn't see you. Would you like to go ahead and introduce Sally and give our introductory thoughts? Or should Sally continue?
I don't know what happened. Maybe she lost connection. All right, I'll continue. All right, so I reviewed 2 books in the past. One was a memoir, like The Bridge Ladies. It was Stop at the Red Apple by my friend whose father owned it, Elaine Lindenblatt. And another was a very humorous novel, which I shared with everyone. So this book, The Bridge Ladies, is a combination of both. It's a memoir, like Stop at the Red Apple, and it's also, there's a lot of humor in this book. I had a hard year health-wise, and actually was not able to read, which I love to do, for so many months. And just as I was getting better, I got an email from Helen inviting me to do a book review. And she said she needed a book with some humor in it, and she made 2 suggestions. So I chose The Bridge Ladies, and I really want to thank Helen for suggesting, first of all, for inviting me to do a book review, and second of all, for suggesting The Bridge Ladies. And I want to suggest it to any of you who have not read it so far. I'm going to begin by reading part of the prologue to the book, just to set the stage. Our author, Betsy Lerner, is remembering the Bridge Ladies from the point of view of a child. She says, as a child, I was fascinated with the Bridge Ladies. They showed up regularly at our house, their hair frosted, their nylon shimmery, carrying patent leather pocketbooks with clasps as round as marbles. I loved greeting them at the door, hanging up their coats in our front hall closet, where I often played inside the folds of my mother's mink. I watched as they gathered around the card table, crowded with a twin set of cards, ashtrays, cellophane-wrapped cigarette packs, a scoring pad, and crystal dishes of candy. I leveled to the bridge table. I greedily surveyed the candy and would plan high-speed kamikaze raids to nab some from below my mother's radar, where my father would let me sit on his lap while he played gin rummy for a hand or 2. The Bridge Ladies erected a square fortress with their backs as they played, communing in their strange language of bids and tricks. As a teenager, I made myself scarce when the Bridge Ladies came over. As far as I was concerned, they were square. They didn't work. They didn't get that feminism was taking over the world. Billie Jean King had defeated Bobby Riggs in the Battle of the Sexes tennis match. Gloria Steinem had started Ms. Magazine, and Helen Reddy roared. To me, as a teenager, the Bridge Ladies were conventional, their sphere limited to family, synagogue, and community. Their identities restricted to daughter, mother, and wife. On top of which, their idea of fun was an afternoon of playing bridge, seriously. Those were her thoughts then. I've heard it said that a good novel reads like a memoir because it seems so real, and that a good memoir reads like a novel because the characters are so engaging. The Bridge Ladies reads like a very good novel, and I had to keep reminding myself that these women were real people and not artfully created characters in a novel. The author, Betsy, is a literary agent and an editor. She grew up in Connecticut in the suburbs, but wanted to live life big in Manhattan. So she moved there for college. She stayed for a graduate degree, married, and had a daughter. Then, after 20 years happily ensconced in city life, her husband was offered a job at Yale. Betsy had always had a difficult relationship with her mom, Roz, who she had phoned once a week from New York, and that was their relationship, and it was working well. But now she was going to live only a few miles from her mom, and she was nervous. But they worked it out as best they could. Whenever she saw her mom found something to criticize about her appearance or whatever she was wearing or how she raised her daughter. Betsy felt she could never never please her mom. Years after moving back to New Haven, her mother had surgery, and Betsy moved in to stay with her and help out while she recovered. I'm going to read you a little excerpt about that. She says, when my mother was recovering from some surgery in January of 2013, I stayed with her to help her out. We had been living in New Haven for more than a decade by then. My dad was gone. My daughter became a teenager in her own right, and we had made new friends and were knitted in. I had become a partner in a literary agency and was commuting to New York twice a week, getting my city fix. On top of that, God shined down his light on our fair city and conferred an Apple store upon us. Did I really have any reason to complain? I wasn't exactly looking forward to staying with my mother, but I knew the job would be made less onerous by the fact that she, even at 83, was more comfortable refusing help than demanding it. Best summed up in the well-known joke, how many Jewish grandmothers does it take to screw in a light bulb? You shouldn't worry, I'll sit in the dark. Every day, one of the bridge ladies visited, as if in an unspoken rotation. They were smaller now, some a little unsteady, but still decked out in color-coordinated outfits, accessories, heels, and bags. And when I said they looked good, I wondered if they really thought,
Oh, golly.
what happened?
Well, if I get dropped, is somebody going to call me back? Because that's been 2 times I've gotten dropped.
Excuse me, you're going to need to unmute yourself, please, sir. Go ahead, Sally. I don't know
Okay,
what happened.
maybe he doesn't belong. Okay, so the bridge ladies visited all decked out. And when they said that I looked good, I wondered if they really thought I was fat, if my unruly hair was an offense. When they asked after my husband and daughter, it struck me that they had been there for all of the rites of passage in my life. They had attended my bat mitzvah, danced at my wedding, and sent gifts when my daughter was born. I had never really taken stock of their generosity. They likely had no idea how much adolescent rancor and disrespect I harbored, or how I had clumped them all together like the presidents carved into Mount Rushmore, indistinguishable one from the other. As demographics go, the bridge ladies couldn't be more alike. They were all in their 80s, all Jewish, and they all attended college. They married young, married Jewish men and stayed married to them. They had 2.5 children. None worked outside the home during the years they raised their children, except for Rhoda, who shattered the stained glass ceiling when she became the executive director at the synagogue. They did the shopping, they cooked the meals. The Joy of Cooking, published in 1936, was their Bible. They picked up the dry cleaning and cleaned their homes. Eventually, each would be able to afford cleaning ladies, as they would all become upwardly mobile. They decorated and planned vacations from the Catskills to Puerto Rico to Rome. So the author, having appreciated the bridge lady's visits to her mom, began to think more about them and wanted to know each of them as individuals. She was happy every time they visited. Each one brought a meal or a brownie and stayed a while. Betsy was touched by their support and loyalty, and she started to think that maybe her friends wouldn't be the same if she ever needed them. So she decided to get to know each of them better. First, she asked to sit in on their Monday bridge games, and later to meet with each of them for interviews. When I asked the ladies if I could sit in on the game, they invited me to join them for lunch and bridge on Mondays, and eventually into their homes for one-on-one conversations about their lives. At the outset, I was interested in the mundane moments, carpooling, packing lunch boxes, or mixing up a batch of sour cream dip with Lipton's onion soup mix. I wanted to know about Dr. Spock and Dr. Seuss, and what it was really like raising a generation of children more entitled and indulged than any other that had come before my generation. That's Betsy's generation, the baby boomers. I was also curious how they felt about all they missed. And I wanted to know how the ladies felt about everything that mattered to me and my generation. I wanted to see if we connected at all. I thought I'd go to Bridge Club for a few weeks, but I stayed for nearly 3 years. When they opened up to me, I found their stories moving and poignant. I once deemed the ladies not worth knowing. Now I wanted to know all I could. This was especially true with my mother. I had no idea that by entering her world, I would begin to bridge both the generation gap and a personal gulf that had defined our relationship. You don't have to know how to play bridge to enjoy this book, but it might make it more interesting. You could take some lessons, as Betsy decided to do, and which she continued on and off for quite a while. I myself learned to play in college, and then played from time to time over the following decades. After moving to Del Webb, I joined the Bridge Club. I played social bridge and took weekly group lessons. When the pandemic hit us, I played against the computer at home. I consider myself an average player at best. My mom was a very good player, and my dad was a bridge master, one of the top players in the country in his time. Sadly, he died when I was just 8 years old. But had he lived, I don't think he could have made me a better player. I did not inherit those genes. Nevertheless, I do like the game. Some of the parts of this memoir recall sad times in the women's lives, but there was also a lot of humor. I found myself laughing out loud a lot, especially when Betsy took beginner bridge lessons at the Manhattan Bridge Club and also at the Orange Senior Center in Connecticut. She describes the dreary places and the people she meets there. At the Manhattan Bridge Club, there are 2 glassed-in rooms used for teaching, lectures, and my favorite term, supervised play, as if we were kindergartners in an enclosed playground. We are set apart so as not to disturb the serious players and various tournaments going on in the main room. Over time, I will meet many people at the Manhattan Bridge Club. On my first day, 2 people join the table. A British woman who barks pleasure when you introduce yourself, and a plump man who looks guilty of something, perhaps stuffing his pockets with cookies. He and I are both ranked beginners, and the English lady used to play, but insists she has forgotten all of it. The Manhattan Bridge Club beginner lessons is filled with people who are coming for a refresher or are starting all over. It sounds like Weight Watchers, where defeated, you periodically return, hoping once again to get it right, hoping something will stick. Some people played when they were young and want to take it up again. Some people have a spouse who plays and they want to get into the action. There are 5 women in the bridge club, so that even if one person can't come, there'll always be 4 for a game. The 5 include my mom and her 4 friends. Betsy gets to interview them and also to sit in on the games and eventually to play with them. She also interviews some of the grown children of the bridge ladies, but these interviews are not as interesting as finding out about their moms. Betsy learns about the ladies' childhoods, educations, hopes and dreams, their marriages, and outlooks on life. Betsy starts her interviews with Betty. Betty was her mom's best friend, and Betsy felt the closest to her. Betsy learns that Betty had been an aspiring actress. She was a star in all her high school plays and believed she had a very bright future ahead of her. When she started college, she found a lot of wannabe stars as well. Women who had been the first in drama in their high schools were now competing against each other in college. And Betty somehow felt overwhelmed by all of this and discouraged. Betty's dad was a used car salesman. He was very tight-fisted. Her mom somehow found the money to dress Betty and provide her with other niceties, including elocution lessons. The only other person I ever heard mention elocution classes was my own mom when she was a girl growing up in Newark, New Jersey. And to tell the truth, my mother spoke beautiful English, even though she was the daughter of Russian immigrants. Betty, getting back to Betty, Betty had a long and happy marriage. Her husband, Arthur, was very good-natured. They had 3 grown children. When her children were at college, Betty worked part-time as a camp consultant. Betty and Arthur stayed in their family home, never moving. The next bridge lady I'll talk about is Bee. Bee was the frankest in her talks with Betsy. She was spry, sharp, and funny. Bee came from Bedford, Indiana. Her family was one of 3 Jewish families in the town. Her parents were Romanian immigrants who opened a clothing store called Bernstein's Ladies Ready to Wear. And they were successful. After a heartbreaking relationship with her college boyfriend, Bee married a medical student who had waited patiently in the wings for her attention. Her husband, Carl, was very devoted. They had 3 children, 1 girl and 2 boys. In later years, they moved to a condo for more comfort. Bee is very outgoing and makes friends wherever she goes. At the local diner, at the soup kitchen, where she is a willing volunteer, and at any local store. The next lady is Jackie. Jackie was very popular as a young woman and had many dates and suitors. Betsy asked her if she accepted a date with anyone who asked her. Oh no, she said, I was fussy. Jackie is still pretty and has an elegant house filled with a variety of unusual antiques. You will enjoy when Betsy Lerner describes each of the homes that the women live in and how they dress and what kind of clothing and jewelry. It's really very interesting. When Betsy began to interview Jackie, she found her to be mostly reserved, almost sphinx-like. She and her husband, Dick, have 2 successful children. Their son, an engineer, and a daughter who works in communications. When her children were in college, Jackie worked part-time for the Automobile Club. She enjoyed helping people plan trips. She and Dick had loved to travel. And her home is also filled with the wonderful souvenirs she picked up along the way. Now we get to Rhoda. Rhoda is now a widow and lives in a beautiful waterfront condo. She is the only one to have a gentleman friend, George. They mostly see each other on weekends, go to plays, concerts, and sometimes they vacation together. Rhoda is outspoken and confident. She was a pampered only child. She graduated from Russell Sage College and later became the executive director of their synagogue and stayed in that job for 16 years. Now retired, she loves to cook and bake. She and her husband, Peter, had adopted 2 children. Last of the bridge ladies was Betsy's mom, Roz, the daughter of Russian immigrants. She grew up poor, living in tenements in Jersey City. Roz's father was abusive and had a volatile temper. She had a very difficult childhood. You see, Betsy is learning things about her mother that she never knew before, and it helps her to understand the way her mother is now. In her young adult years, Roz joined the Communist Party and had a crush on Eugene Genovese, a local leader. But in the end, she married Betsy's dad, the only husband without a college degree. He had started out as a truck driver in a cousin's lumber yard and worked his way up. He was a hard worker ambitious, and decent. It took Roz many years to become pregnant with her first child, Nina. She suffered postpartum depression, which was undiagnosed in those days, and had a very hard time. Betsy, the author of our memoir, was the second child. And when she was 4, her 2-year-old baby sister, Barbara, died suddenly from some sort of pneumonia. Each family member grieved alone, as this death was never discussed. All of Barbara's photos and clothes. Years later, when Roz was 39, she became pregnant. Gail was a delightful child, loved by all, and helped to bring the family closer again. There is so much more to learn about these wonderful ladies. I encourage you to read this engaging memoir. I will leave you all with a quote near the end of the book. They are all here, the Bridge ladies. If you don't know them, you would never guess that they've been together in a club for over 50 years. Thousands of lunches, many more thousands of hands of bridge, and all the bowls of bridge mix, the disputes over bad bids, the number of tricks taken, tricks lost. Their club has more staying power than most marriages. Children born, schooled, launched into the world. A tidal wave of worries, a string of happy days, a family singing together in a station wagon on a long ride home. The nest emptied, husbands buried, sunrise, sunset.
Sally, that was beautiful.
Thank you.
I actually have read this book a couple of years ago, and I'm just reminded how beautifully it's written and
Yes.
so poignant. I'm sure each and every one of us had a personal memory of our own with our moms, whether it was mahjong groups or bridge clubs or whatever. That was great. So Eve, are you there? Would you like to say a few words? We missed you in the beginning. I'm not sure if there was a technical issue. If you're there and available, you can unmute.
I just went out, then I came back. I have no explanation, but I'm sorry I missed the opportunity to introduce Sally. I'm going to tell you a bit about my Hadassah moment, which is about the youth Aliyah. And then I don't want to miss out on the opportunity to talk about Sally, who I've had some nice conversations on the phone with. And we're going to try to get together to play bridge because I love bridge as well. And I love the book. So anyway, if you don't know anything about the youth Aliyah, they are currently areas in Israel that cater to nurturing teenagers and youth. They were started, the youth Aliyah was started by someone named Reka Freyer, who is a rabbi's wife. She founded the youth Aliyah in Berlin the same day that Adolf Hitler took control of Germany. She supervised the organization's activities. At the time, I just read a little bit more about Rebbitzin Freer. She and Harriet Zold, I just recently found out from some more reading I did, sometimes clashed on some things. Mrs. Freer wanted Ms. Zold to become more active and supportive of the youth Aliyah, but Harriet Zold was tasked with financing many of the Jewish organizations in Palestine, and she was afraid that There wasn't that they wouldn't have enough funding to make the Youth Aliyah successful. And at the time, there was a former president of Hadassah, Tamar D. Sola Pool, who I had not heard of. Long story short, her and her husband, on a visit to Palestine, were about to return to the United States. They met with Harriet Zold. Harriet told them about the Youth Aliyah, and that they needed funding, which, by the way, they are still looking for funding. And Mrs. DeSola Pool called a friend of her family, Eddie Cantor, the comedian actor of that era. This was the 30s. He donated $25,000 to start the program. In today's market, $25,000 would spend at just under $500,000 in what it is today. So 25,000 was a very nice donation, and it really was able to get them started. And more that I've read about Mrs. Araya, Mrs. Fryer, the rabbi's wife, she really was never given credit for all that she did to start the Youth Aliyah, but that's a whole nother story. And I have more information about that. If anyone's interested, I have a few PDFs I'd be happy to send out to anyone who wants to find out more about it. Recha Fryer, in her own right, was quite a champion of Palestine, quite a champion of Israel, and sort of had an inkling about what was happening in Germany before it was known worldwide. So she sometimes was looked down upon by some people who were somewhat deniers, who didn't think that the Germans would take over. And so she was ostracized from this group, this political group. But that is a whole nother story, but it's very interesting, and I'd be happy to send you all that information about that. But today, there are 3 youth aliyahs in Israel. The teenagers that participate come from all backgrounds with not necessarily any knowledge of the Jewish heritage, or they don't all have Jewish heritage. Then they were offered a variety of programs. There are 3 aliyahs. The first one is Meir Shafaya, which I know I'm probably butchering the sound of it, but you'll get the idea. It's located just north of Zikron Yaakov. It was established as a village for the advancement of Israeli youth. In 1923, the village's founder, Baron Edmund Rothschild, donated the grounds to Hadassah through Henrietta Zold. And since then, it's helped many youth as they matured. It is the youth village that has its own winery, and I know there are many of my sisters there would be very interested. My Hadassah sisters and otherwise, and you know who you are, would be interested in the fact that there's a full-fledged winery. The village includes a junior high school, a senior high school, computer labs, science labs. It has the Bonnie Lipton Center for the Performing Arts, an auditorium that seats 500. It's very modern, and through contributions, it's really kept up with what's going on that youth need to have to come on their own in society. The winery, which began in 2005, now produces 5,000 bottles of premium wine a year. So that would be a good one to keep aware of. Let's see, and there's more information. There's lots of information. If you Google just Youth Aliyah, and not just through the Hadassah website, there's lots of information on these things outside of Hadassah. The next Youth Aliyah group is Hadassah Nerium. It was founded in 1948 as a refugee for children fleeing the gunfire of the War of Independence. Today, it also continues to be a sanctuary for youth around the world and from the streets of Israel. hundreds of adolescents, the majority of whom are from the Soviet Union, call Noreen home. They have programs, sound and audio workshops, animal therapy, pre-army preparation, and carpentry. They offer programs for special needs students and athletically gifted youth. It's not just about the game. The sports program provides at-risk youth a nurturing social and educational framework through which they learn teamwork and discipline. It sounded to me like it was on the idea of what the YWCA and the the Young Men's Hebrew Association does for youth in communities that don't have a lot of resources, but the youth Aliyah take the children and nurture them at an early age and help them to go out to society. The last youth Aliyah village is Ramat Hadassah Zold Youth Village, located southeast of Haifa in Kiryat Tivon. It was founded in 1949 as a center to receive children from Yemen and to serve as a residential educational facility for young Holocaust survivors. Today, it serves both Israeli-born and immigrant youth who require intensive remedial educational programs. About 70% of today's residents come from Ethiopia and countries of the former Soviet Union. Youth Aliyah sets at-risk children in Israel on the path to successful futures. Since 1934, over 300,000 young people from 80 lands have graduated from Youth Aliyah, and there's much more to be read about the Youth Aliyah villages. I was not aware of this when I was asked to introduce Sally and told about the Hadassah moment. This was one of the items that was suggested to me by Helen. And it's just so interesting. And there's so much more to it than what I read about on the Hadassah websites. And as I said, the woman who never really received the full credit for it, Recha Freyer, really wasn't always given the full credit for her founding and many other things that she did for the Zionist community back in Israel in the early 1930s. So there's a whole story there on her. And as I said, I have a great PDF on that if you'd like to hear more about it. So it's a very interesting program that I was not aware of it at all, being new to Hadassah, and I'm just very impressed with all that has been done. And also within the website, they are still, as always, contributions are welcome for the Youth Aliyah. I had some statistics about what it costs to keep the programs available. And right now I have too many papers here to sift through because in my technical problems, everything got a little finished, but it's all and they need money. The line is they need money, spend money to specifically for the Youth Aliyah. So anyway, this is such a great opportunity to find out more about some things Hadassah does. And to now I'd love to tell you a little bit about my friend Sally. And when I think of her name, because it's Sally Wahl Constain, I think I'm saying in my mind, Sally Jesse Raphael, who some of you might remember from the 80s, but it's just that 3-word thing I can't get out of my mind. So, but let me tell you the nice things about Sally Wahl Constain. She's a New York native. She graduated with a bachelor's degree in early childhood education from State University of New York, Cortland, before earning her master's degree from Hunter College. The master's degree was in bilingual education. Throughout her 34-year employment as a teacher and school librarian, she also worked as a staff developer and coordinator for the writing project at Columbia University's Teachers College. She acted as the Horn Book Guide's reviewer of children's books for many years as well. Since retirement, she's enjoyed pursuing her dream of writing, taking classes, performing volunteer work, and traveling. Sally and her husband, Edward, or Eddie, they've been married for over 40 years. They have one son, Bill, who lives nearby with his wife, Nicole, and they have 2 teenage grandsons, Robbie and Gregory. And what's so nice about reading about Sally, I read a bit more about the book that she wrote. I don't know, I missed the beginning, but I don't know if you all are aware that Sally herself is an actual published author. And the book she wrote, The Keys to Fanny, I'm trying to get a copy of it from Amazon so I can have Sally autograph it. But it sounds like a really wonderful story about Sally's conversations or getting to know her great grandmother and learning about the shtetl that she came from and the experience that she had there. And it made me think so much about, I never knew my maternal grandmother who had come from a shtetl in Russia, but I wish that I had, like Sally did, spent more time with my relatives who have now passed, even my own parents, because they would have had some great stories about, their parents coming from Russia, New York and Brooklyn in the, teens, 20s, 30s, and 40s. So I think it's in what Sally has done. I hope we all take opportunities to talk about our relatives that we have that are a little bit older, even though we're a little getting older ourselves now, myself. Don't miss an opportunity to talk with someone who you love, and there's so much more they could tell. So, and also Sally and I like bridge too. I played bridge through college. If I hadn't played so much bridge, I probably would have made the dean's list, but unfortunately I decided to do rock music and bridge instead, which turned out okay for me. So Sally and I are going to try to get a bridge game together. I have a friend who plays, and my interest in bridge was how Helen got me into this position to introduce Sally. So anyway, this has been a very nice experience. Thank you for your patience with my technical difficulties, but everyone just froze up, and but I was very calm. I didn't cry. I just drank more coffee and I was fine. And here we are. So it's been a great experience. I want to thank all of you for allowing me the opportunity to do this. And I enjoyed every moment of it, even the technical stuff.
Thank you, Eve. Thank you, Eve. Thank you so much. Great information about Youth Aliyah, great information about, a reminder, I should say, about our series, Why Didn't I Ask?, which we kicked off on June 1st, talk about life stories. And if you're interested in learning how to write your own life story, we'll be sending out some more information about a workshop coming up. So one more announcement, and then I would really just like to open it up to any questions you have for Sally, any comments you have about the book. The one thing I do want to say, because people might start, I don't want anybody to get off a little early before knowing this, is that next week we are going to have a different Zoom meeting link. I am putting it into the chat box right now, but I will be following up with a reminder email giving you that link. That's just an important technical announcement.
Ellen, remind us what book it is next week and who's doing the review?
Yes, next week
Thank you.
is a wonderful book by Rabbi Jonathan Sachs. This book went into print just a couple of months before he died in November of 2020, I believe. And we are really excited that Cantor Carrie Berry is going to be reviewing this book, and that will be the last one for the summer. So that being said, any questions for Sally? Just unmute yourself when you have a question. And
this isn't a question, but I just got a call from the temple, and Shoshana Haas, which many of us know, I was told has COVID, and they're looking to, I haven't seen the email, so this is strictly from what I was told, and I wanted to hang up to hear the book review, that they're looking to organize some meals for her. So Susan Board is the chesed person from the temple, and she might be the best person to call, or I know I don't live that far from her. She lives over in June. What's the name of the development?
Hey,
Wendy,
right.
thank you for that announcement. I am really, really sorry to hear about Shoshana. And just, why don't, if anyone does want to help, call the temple and find out what you can do. Thank you
Okay.
so much, Wendy.
Okay.
Any other questions for Sally or comments about the Bridge Ladies?
I would just like to say that I enjoyed the other book drops, you know, that she was talking about the joy of cooking, because we had that book in our house too. And the idea of, you know, stop at the Red Apple. You know, I always get good ideas of other books to read. And also, Eve, I kind of think, you know, your connection to Jacksonville for a whole long time. I put in the chat that the Bridge Ladies reminded me of my mother-in-law's friends up here. And,
Oh,
and the
Yes.
Wittens, and even your aunt and your mother, and the characters that you know, the characteristics of a lot of the same people, Phyllis Lewis and Mrs. Grauer, you know, and the way the Bridge Lady, they developed their personalities, I guess I would say.
I
And,
think
and I would just like to say Annette and Phyllis are still at River Garden. And probably, oh, that iPad person is coming on. I think I know who that is too. I should mention. But it's just very interesting listening, and that daughter finding out more about the friends that were at all of her bar mitzvahs and whatever her special occasions. And I enjoyed the book a lot, and I enjoyed Sally too, meeting you.
That group, I know the group you're speaking of, Martha. My aunt was part of that group. And I believe, though, they played poker and not bridge for money. And it was,
And my mother played gin rummy, not bridge, but her
So,
sister played bridge.
I worked at Pantry Pratt, and my aunt came in with a check that she had to deposit or cash. And she had won it playing poker, and it was more than $5. Let me just say that. So anyway, but I think the book too, it gave me a sense of that community you form when you have a weekly group that you meet with, whether it's bridge or meditation or whatever, but there's something very special about the bond that you develop and what you find out about each other. So that was nice. Thank you for reminding me of that, Martha. So,
I don't know if you can hear me. Can you hear me?
yes.
This is Rita Baumgarten. I
Rita,
was part of the group.
She
that
also
Martha
was part
is
of that
talking
group.
about. We were not card players as a group. We were called the Lunch Bunch. We
Oh, the
formed a
Lunch
minion
Bunch.
of 10 girls, and we met once a month and had lunch together. And we did that probably for 20 years. And Tootsie, who was Martha's mother-in-law, was a very, very dear friend. And of the 10 of us, there's probably 3 of us still alive. As she mentioned, Phyllis Lewis, Joni Waits, and my Annette Grauer and myself. 4 of us are still alive out of the 10.
Did you
And
play
we love each other, and we
But they just ate.
we flew everywhere. My friends came to my granddaughter's bar mitzvahs in New Orleans. We flew to everybody's bar mitzvah, simcha, their children's weddings, and we were just a close group, and we loved each other.
Yeah.
Thank
And
you.
they all
Martha.
dressed up very nice too. They're very
Well,
fancy.
we're just naturally dressed up very nice, but anyhow, we were a wonderful, loving group, like sisters, really.
I remember at my sister-in-law's bridal shower, because everyone, Jacobson's, you and my mother had the same dress on, and I thought that was funny, but you both look fabulous. So it came from Jacobson's, where half the women worked, and Mrs. Jarrett worked there, Anita's mom.
And
Anyway,
Rita Baumgarten.
and Rita, I know, and Aunt Dee.
Absolutely.
Good times.
Right. Good times and good memories and wonderful ladies and wonderful friends. And as I was listening to the book review, believe me, I had flashbacks.
Yeah.
It's very poignant. And I think for me, my mom was not a bridge player, but my mother had a very strong group of friends that really were there for each other. And I don't think I came to appreciate that until I got older, and how much my circle of friends means to me, and that we have gone through so many life cycle things together as well. I mean, it's that part of the book was also just was beautiful, and that is the cycle of life, isn't it?
Right.
Thank
Journey.
you so much that I could be at Sally's review because I loved it. And I can't wait now because Sally and I write together. I can't wait to write a story about my grandma's bunco group.
Ah,
It's just waiting there.
Do you
And
play bridge?
also, if any of you have not read The Keys to Fanning, that's how I met Sally, because I was so entranced with her book. And it is wonderful, but it's not a memoir. It's telling about
Fiction.
there's a background of her grandmother, but this is fiction. I mean, this came out of Sally's head, and it just goes in every direction. It's very exciting. So enjoy it.
Thank you, Sue. And I'd like to make a comment about friendships. I'm an only child, and I've been very blessed all my life with wonderful friends, some of whom I'm still friends with after way more than 60 years. And have the good fortune here in Florida to have met a lot of you ladies and Sue and other members of our Writers Club. We have become really close, and they are very caring people.
As you are.
Wonderful review.
It's the power of women who do, which seems like a pretty good way to end our Hadassah book review today. We are the women who do.
Thank you, Helen.
Thank
Helen,
you.
you also, hats off to Helen for her wonderful organizing skills and ideas and putting them into action and helping us enjoy broadening our horizons, even though we're still making that transition from Zoom back to real life after COVID. I'm not really sure, but anyway, Helen, this is, I kind of know what's involved in getting this together. And you have been stalwart and creative and just a real rock. And I'm proud to know you, and I'm proud to be friends with you.
Aw. Here, here.
Helen, can we get a picture